Good morning, everyone. Welcome to game day, baby. This is Packers Total Access live. Appreciate everybody joining us here as we're getting ready for the Packers and the Broncos kicking off this evening. Just want to let everybody know there will be a pregame show, but until then, we're going to be just doing a little Packers talk this morning, pick up where we left off last night as far as camp battles go, and kind of get everybody updated on what happened during joint practices, all that good stuff. Just a little teaser for tonight's pregame show. I got Jacob joining me here from Wisconsin, just ready to kind of break it all down. Jacob, how you doing, buddy? Are you awake? That's the first question.
I am. I was up today, got a little workout, showered, got some coffee. So I'm about as awake as I'll ever be. It's like 62 degrees. This little breeze. It's pretty nice.
Yeah, I think we're sitting at about 68. Got a little rain falling. It's nice down there. You can tell fall's right around the corner, man. I am a fall nut. There's no doubt about it, man. No pun intended there. So, but I'll tell you where the pun is intended. Maybe not. I don't know. I want to give a shout out today to our good friends over at Ticket King, the official ticket provider of Packer Fan Total Access Live. Wisconsin-based since 92, specializing in Packers tickets. They're Wisconsin's largest ticket source. The office is next to Lambeau and in Milwaukee. Just click on the link in the video description here. That'll send you to theticketking.com where you can register for free as a customer and go ahead and start shopping for your Packers tickets. They got everything you need over there to make it convenient. They're going to save you time and money over at Ticket King. Again, check them out, theticketking.com, the official ticket provider of Packer Fan Total Access Live. All right, Jacob, let's just jump into some news this morning, man. Came down the pocket. No big surprise. The Vikings have been kind of courting Stefon Gilmore for some time now. Once he made the visit up to Minnesota, it kind of seemed like, okay, they're probably going to sign this cat because someone of that stature, former defensive player of the year, granted it was a long time ago, when he makes the trip up to Minnesota, probably not going to make that trip unless he feels real confident he signs. So Ian Rappaport tweeted out, the Vikings are making a major free agent acquisition at a time when they rarely happen. Former Pro Bowl cornerback Stefon Gilmore signing with the Minnesota Vikings on a one-year, $10 million deal, sources say. The ex-Cowboys and Patriots cornerback is back with defensive coordinator Brian Flores. So what they mean there is obviously Brian Flores used to be a defensive coach for the New England Patriots. Stefon Gilmore, that's when he played his best ball, was when he was with Brian Flores. There's no doubt about that. B-Flow, pretty good cornerback whisperer. I know we got one ourselves here in Jeff Hafley now. At least we're hoping so. I don't hate the signing, Jacob, but we can't sit here and pretend like Stefon Gilmore is the player that he used to be. Obviously, the first thing I did when I seen the news this morning, I said, let me go grab that Dontavion Wicks clip of him just absolutely scorching Stefon Gilmore in the playoffs. But how do you feel about it, man?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like how Coach Len says, it seems a little bit of a desperate move, but you know, we went over all the troubles that team has had specifically in their secondary, obviously losing Mr. Jackson and then having the injury bug bite a few of them and just certain draft picks that never really came to fruition. I saw it too. Didn't they trade Andrew Booth? Am I crazy? That was a guy that was a high draft pick that I thought that they were going to have some hopes in. That Lewis Seen, remember the safety that everybody wanted the Packers to get? He just has barely even cracked starting 53. It sounds like he's like third or fourth on the depth chart. So just every part of that secondary kind of has been falling apart. Harrison Smith is like 55 years old, you know, so there's only so many things that they can do. And I think Adam Scheffner was talking about how when the last safety signed, I think it was Simons that signed down in Atlanta, they said it was so rare that they'd be offering a contract that was, I think that contract was even $7 or $8 million. So this one, they said that usually this time of year after kind of the dust is settled and the cards have been all shuffled around, that usually teams aren't willing to sign bigger contracts, but for the fact of that they're kind of desperate without, you know, that's basically what Coach was just saying. They're kind of desperate. They know they need to have a shutdown, quote unquote, corner. I don't think Gilmore is that anymore. You know, we talked about right here, Dobbs torched him a lot that game. Wicks absolutely torched him a lot that game. And I think it's a move the Vikings had to make. I'm glad that they just wasted $10 million for us to cut him up and just posterize him for Jordan Love.
So, yeah, you were right. On August 9th, there was a tweet that went out, said the Vikings are acquiring Nashawn Wright from the Cowboys in exchange for cornerback Andrew Booth Jr. per Tom Pelissero. It's a career 78.0 run defense grade. When you're highlighting run defense grade for a corner, probably not a good look. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing wrong with good run defense. Don't get me wrong, but you don't sign cornerbacks to stop the run. You sign cornerbacks to stop Dontavion Wicks, and at least the early stages of their matchups with him and Stefon Gilmore, he hasn't been able to do that. So let's see here. Let's go to the chat real quick, see what everybody's got popping off. Dennis Shook said, big day for Sean Clifford. He's fighting for his life, R. Kelly style. We need that clip. I'm fighting for my life. We got to get the edited version, of course. Listen, I don't mean to make light of a really bad situation there, but that dude, it's okay to make fun of him, in my opinion. That's just
R. Kelly.
Yeah,
Dude, that guy. Everybody knew he was a piece of crap. Remember, dude, even Chappelle, like 20 years ago,
way early.
I wanna be on you,
man. If I ain't.
Don't do it.
Go check out Chappelle's show. If you can find them, they may be banned now. But I'm telling you, I love the way that dude united everybody by just making fun. There was no one off limits. White, black, Hispanic, everybody. He's like, you know what? Let's just put them all in a kettle here, and we're just gonna have some fun. I love it, man. I think that's the way it should be. Let's lighten up a little bit, make fun of each other, and laugh at ourselves. And life's too short to be trying to cancel everybody. Dennis Shook in the chat said, Emilio was texting me at 3:07 a.m. Central Time, post afters. You up? So he definitely won't be here today, but I'll let you know when he makes his way into the kitchen for coffee and ibuprofen. So there you go. And then, of course, Omer jumped in right after that, or maybe it was a little before that, said Vikings have signed former Cowboy Stefon Gilmore to a 1-year, $10 million deal. So Omer, man, just giving his 5 keys to the game today, or not keys, but I guess things he's going to be watching for. Love that dude, man. His passion for the Packers. Deadfish says now we can torch him twice a year instead of just in the playoffs. Amen, man. Amen. We need all that we can get. Like Jacob said, man, let's get him out there and roast him. Carly Ray in the chat said, I got family visiting and hope to catch the end of the game. They'd rather go and see a waterfall than the Packers. Facepalm emojis. Enjoy family, Carly. Enjoy family. It's just pretty season.
Dennis can't believe that the channel was ever demonetized. How does that happen? He's asking.
That's a great question, Dennis. I don't know, man. We've got people. We got people on the case. That's where Tim at. Tim and Emilio are on assignment trying to figure out why we got demonetized. There you go. All right, that's where they're at. So we're going to start beating that into the ground, the whole on assignment thing. All right, so let's get back to the Camp Battles article. I want to give another plug for this. Bill Huber wrote an excellent article talking about the different camp battles that are going on. And of course, the tweet said in 10 days, the Packers will have to cut their roster to 53 players. Here's an updated look at the big roster battles ahead of Sunday night's game at Denver and the practice and game next week against Baltimore. So make sure you go find this tweet, retweet it, like it, all that good stuff, share it around, and make sure you click on the link too. Give him a click there. He's done an excellent job with this article. Let's just dive right into it. Jacob, we're going to get into the defensive side of the ball. This one I'm probably more excited about, or just as excited, I should say, than the offense, because it seems to be a lot of depth here on the defensive side of the ball, at least on the surface. Now, it's funny because every year when we get into practices, joint practices, training camp, all that stuff, everyone's opinion tends to change because you'll see, like I remember for so many years, Aaron Rodgers struggling in training camp. And he was like, is this the year he falls off? Throwing interceptions every day, something that's just so uncharacteristic of Aaron Rodgers. And the reason being, you're out there, you're testing new things. And I know there's a lot of people that are absolutely freaking out about the whole Denver Broncos joint practice. And it's like, it's just that, guys, just a practice. It's a chance to get out there. Really, it's the first time you've had an opportunity to hit another team, someone other than your own teammates. So there's no reason to freak out over that stuff. Okay. And I know Jacob had to step away. He'll be back here in just a second. There's no reason to freak out over that stuff. Like, this is the time that you try to stretch yourself. Offensively, you're going to try things that you normally, might not try to fit that throw into a tight window unless the game's on the line and you got to make something happen. On defense, they may be trying different fronts. They may be trying different rotations, different groupings, if you will. There's a lot of different things that go into joint practice preparation, and everything's specifically set up to put stress on your offense and defense, even your special teams. So when the coaches meet for a joint practice and you just had, like Sean Payton and Matt LaFleur meet up, they probably went out to dinner, a night or two before whenever they got into town, met up, said, hey, here's what I'd like to accomplish on our end of the practice. What would you like to accomplish? And they try to gear everything up for that. Think of it this way. I'm not saying this is what happened during the joint practice preparation, but what if Sean Payton told Matt LaFleur, hey, look, I need to get, the way Sean Payton's approaching Bo Nix, and you guys know Bo Nix was one of my draft crushes. I felt like he was, aside from, I'm not saying I would have taken him as high as a Caleb Williams, but when I sat down and watched all the quarterbacks tape, Bo Nix was the one I was like, I kind of like this dude. So keep that in mind. Now, Sean Payton has put Bo Nix at the bottom of the depth chart, at least he was when they started camp, saying he is like third string. That is the old Bill Parcells way of handling the quarterback, and really any position in that regard. They want them, that old school method is they want them to earn it rather than just thrusting them in as a starter. Okay, not that you wouldn't work anyway. We know these guys are working their tails off no matter what position they're playing at the NFL level. But you put them in that position and you say, okay, work your way up, earn it. Not only does it force the quarterback to handle a little pressure early, and you get to see how is he handling that pressure of trying to climb up the depth chart. But also it allows his teammates to earn a little more respect for him too, right? Like they're looking at him going, hey, look, they didn't give this dude anything, and he earned the starting spot, right? It's just a real good way of building culture, and Sean Payton comes from the Bill Parcells coaching tree. That was Bill Parcells 101. I say all that because Sean Payton, I wouldn't be surprised if he went to Matt LaFleur and said, what I want to accomplish is to give Bo Nix a lot of opportunity to climb up this step chart. You see what I'm saying? And on Matt LaFleur's side, it may be, hey, look, we struggle with trip set, or we struggle against a base 12 personnel. Can you throw a lot of that at us? Yeah, sure. And you kind of couple those things together, and you're working. And again, I'm not saying that LaFleur rigged the practice to be bad. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm simply saying he probably had a good idea of here's where we need to put stress on our defense. So let's put them in some, at a disadvantage on a consistent basis throughout this joint practice. And he knew that Sean Payton was looking to get Bo Nix some precious time out there with the ones, maybe even the twos. I don't even know all the details on where he played or how that came about, but that's just another way of looking at these joint practices. I think there is some of that's involved. So with that being said, let's get into the defensive side of the ball with the camp battles, according to Bill Huber. Again, go give him a follow, like, all that good stuff. So defensive tackle, he said the story was the rotation. The story now is still the rotation. It said little, if anything, has changed. Kenny Clark is the top dog. TJ Slaton and Devontae Wyatt will be mixed and matched as much as possible based on down and distance situations. And Carl Brooks has been ahead of Kobe Wooden throughout camp. So I want to key in right here on his comment that he says we'll be mixed and matched as much as possible based on down and distance situations. Remember what I was saying about the base defense. When we're out there in our 4-3 base against a 12 or a 21 personnel, more likely than not, it's going to be TJ Slaton playing that one technique. What that does is it allows you to free up Kenny Clark to play the 3 tech. And again, when we're talking 1 and 3 tech, if you're playing an over front, okay, let's say it's a 12 personnel tight ends are strong right. So it's a strong right look, right? If you're playing an over front, then the one defensive tackle on the strong side of the formation will be in a 3 to 4 tech, maybe even wider. And on the other side will typically be someone playing shade or a 1 tech, okay, on the underside of the weak side of the formation. That 1 tech kind of acts as your nose tackle, right? He's that guy that you want at the point of attack. You want a guy that's beefy. Think of how we played the 34 jam, right? And you would always put that big cat at nose tackle. At times, Kenny would play it, but that was a big misconception amongst Packer fans because a lot of beat writers were saying, no, Kenny's he's being asked to play too much nose. He's being asked to play too much nose. And then you watch the tape and it's like, that cat's in a 3 tech. What are we talking about? So TJ Slaton, I think what he's talking about here in Bill Huber is TJ Slaton, they're looking to mix him into that 4-3 base, and he can play a 1 tech and allow Kenny Clark to play that true 3 to 4 tech, right? A 4-hour or a 3 tech, whether it's an over or an under. When I say over and under, over means the defensive tackles, the 2 defensive tackles in a 4-3 are cheated to the strong side of the formation, and under, they're cheated to the weak side of the formation. And typically what will happen there is a Sam will walk up to the line of scrimmage, or you'll put the Sam backer, have him shade in just a touch and bring a spur safety into the box and give you kind of that 4-4 look with a hybrid safety approach. So that's what we mean by over and under. But when it comes to the rotation, nothing's really changed here. We're just watching, okay, who's going to win these rotational snaps? Because if TJ Slayton goes out there and balls out, I think you're back now, Jacob. Is that right?
Yeah.
If TJ Slayton goes out there and balls out, I'm not saying he doesn't have a shot to compete for Devontae Wyatt reps. What I'm simply saying is in a 4-3 base, I mean, we talked about the pressure rate. TJ Slayton was what? Somewhere a little over 5%. Devontae Wyatt was over 10%, if I remember correctly. So if that's the case, I love the rotational aspect of TJ Slayton playing one tech in a 4-3. Then when they go to their nickel set, when they go to their 11 personnel, we'll switch to our nickel 4-2-5, get TJ Slayton off the field, get Devontae Wyatt in there to play that 1-3 tech, whichever one you like your matchup on as far as Kenny. So what do you think here? Anything you'd like to add here to the defensive tackle position and in this rotational aspect? And again, I think Carl Brooks is going to be a great defensive lineman. I really do. But what do you think about this?
Yeah, I mean, like you just mentioned, Carl Brooks, I don't think gets enough respect for just the type of performance he did. If he takes a big step this year, you'd have to think that you try to find a way to plug him into that rotation a little more. But, as we went over last night, Devontae Wyatt, I think he was at like 14.7%, and Slayton, at that 5.6% there. If Devontae Wyatt keeps even anywhere near those types of numbers, it's hard to take him off the field. You know what I mean? Especially like you talked about in pass rush situations, that just screams to have him out there. So maybe you get more doses of Slayton on early downs, more doses of Wyatt on more third and long and that type of stuff. I think would be a perfect match.
Yeah, definitely. And here we got Prince in the chat said Ford as Slayton, Brooks as Wyatt, Wooden as Clark if they rest the starters. I think that's phenomenal there. I really do. You got Slayton to play the nose, and it sounds like they're not going to play many starters. That's what, at least on the surface, that's what it seems like here. Talking about the game tonight here, the preseason game against Denver, I believe Coach LaFleur basically came out and said we're treating the joint practice as the game time, and it'll just be the 2s, the 3s, and the 4s out there during the game. But so instead of having TJ Slayton out there, they'll have Jonathan Ford. Instead of having Brooks out there, instead of having Wyatt out there, they'll have Carl Brooks playing that 3 tech. And Wooden can kind of play as Clark. I would kind of see Brooks more of Clark's position than Wooden, but Wooden's going to get a lot of playing time too. So think of Brooks and Wooden as Clark and Wyatt together. And then, like you said, Jonathan Ford as TJ Slayton, which I think TJ Slayton's actually going to get a little bit of playing time here today, Jake. So we'll see though, man. I see here also in the chat, Dennis Shook says, I think we can bring Quay behind Wyatt to heat up the quarterback the same way we used Zadarius his first year. Z was so dominant doing that season. That's a great point. And what he's talking about is mugging that A gap. Now, we did it with an edge defender, and that really caused some problems because, we're putting on tape that guy's rushing off the edge, and then all of a sudden he's lined up in the 1 tech. That's much different than the mock just climbing down, or crawling down, I should say, into that A gap and mugging. But you could accomplish the same thing. You're getting to the same finishing point 2 different ways, right, Dennis? I think that's a great point because, like we pointed out last night, Jacob, Quay Walker, 18% pressure percentage on the quarterback last year, and again, a lot of that is catching the defense off guard, sugaring a little hole or rat look, and then firing the backer. But in this case, I think it's just a great way to force one-on-one matchups if you can get Quay up. And another thing I think they'll do with Quay is they'll do that kind of that sugar touch where they'll just touch and go, touch and spy, that type of thing, especially when they play more mobile quarterbacks. So, good stuff there, Dennis. Appreciate it, buddy. Let's see what else we got in the chat here real quick. I think Coach said something. Coach said kicking LVN inside on nickel 4-2-5 will give teams fits also. Man, I'm so excited, Coach, to see LVN today. That dude, what he did in the last preseason game, that's not just it's a flash in the pan. That kind of feels like, okay, this is a combination of year 2. He's in even better shape, better football shape. And on top of that, that dude is now playing a 1-gap approach in this new 4-3 look at half. That's exciting, man, to think of him in there in a 3 tech too. That you can't roll that out. That's the beautiful thing about the new 4-3 transition is you've got a lot more versatility. If we get banged up on the edge, Devontae Wyatt can play defensive end. Carl Brooks can play defensive end, but obviously we don't want to see those guys get banged up, and vice versa. LVN can kick inside if he needs to, like Coach Lynn's saying here with the 4-2-5 nickel. So good stuff, man. All right, let's slide down to defensive end. Jacob, it says the story was bottom of the depth chart. Now it's Brenton Cox pushing for a roster spot. So it says Cox made the 53 as an undrafted rookie last year, but played only 4 snaps on offense and 9 snaps on special teams and 4 appearances. I think he meant defense there, I'm sure. He's had a strong camp on defense, but special teams, the reason why he didn't play last year will have to be why he has the role this year. Quote, just working on that. That's been my main focus this year, Cox said. Recently, we've got a lot of pass rushers already dialed in and ready to go. When the opportunity comes, I'm going to be ready to play on special teams for Coach Rich, talking about Coach Bisaccia there. Jacob, what do you think about Brenton Cox? Do you think he has that roster spot locked up, or do you think there's a chance that he's got to kind of play his way on, man?
I don't dare say that it's locked up, but I probably think that even over some of the wide receivers and other talent, it'd be hard for me to think that we're going to get this guy to clear waivers. He was supposed to be at one point up to like a 3rd round draft pick. Even some people had him before that. And it was the off the field issues that completely catapulted him off of that, basically out of that whole draft. So I know for a fact that there's still going to be people around the league that have him on their radar. And I just would never, I'd never forgive myself if the Cox got away,
Understand, man. Completely understand. When you look at the depth chart, the question to me becomes, are you carrying 6 or not? Are you carrying 6 defensive ends? If you are, Brenton Cox Jr. makes the roster. If you think you can get away with 4 because of that versatility we talked about with Devontae Wyatt and Carl Brooks being able to play the edge in a pinch, then maybe you just kick him to the practice squad. I know this. That last game, to me, it looked like nothing had changed. He's still a phenomenal athlete. He can still get into the backfield quick. It's just he plays a little out of control. I mean, you've seen it too, right, Jake? I'm not being too harsh on him. It just seemed like when he got in the backfield, overrunning the read option, things like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yep, that was his biggest knock in college, was that he basically has one mode, and it's hair on fire, sprinting off the edge. And a lot of times he gets himself into trouble, like you talked about, with over pursuing, and really susceptible for biting on like RPOs and any sort of play actions and bootlegs and that kind of stuff. Prince goes on to say Cox needs to do better setting the edge today. Kind of got exposed versus Cleveland, which is exactly what we were just talking about.
Yep. Nailed it, Prince. Appreciate it, buddy. All right, moving along, linebacker.
What do you think about coaches talking Keyshawn Banks may still have something to say about all this, making being the last one to make that team?
It's a good point. When I grabbed this screen grab off ESPN.com of the depth chart, they had Keyshawn Banks still questionable. I haven't heard much about him in camp, but all it takes is a game or two. You don't believe me. I specifically remember one preseason game where Desmond Bishop made the team at linebacker. You remember it that year when he hit that dude in the preseason and the helmet went one way, the do-rag went the other, and everybody's like, dang. Next thing you know, Desmond Bishop's out there picking off Brett Favre. Like it's all it takes is one game to flash. Now you can't make the club in the tub. This is exactly what we mean by that comment. If Keyshawn Banks stays banged up, and I'm sure he's completely healthy now, that's what we mean by missing those valuable reps and obviously not being able to make the roster, not be able to make the club. Of all of these, Keyshawn Banks, I think, probably has the best shot to compete with Brenton Cox Jr., maybe Aaron Mosby. Zach Morton, I haven't heard much about. I think it's a good point, Coach. I definitely think it's Brenton Cox Jr.'s position to lose if they do decide to carry 6 defensive ends. That makes sense. So appreciate the comment there, though, Coach. All right, next, linebacker. Was Edgerrin Cooper versus Isaiah McDuffie for the full-time role. Now it's Edgerrin Cooper versus Eric Wilson eventually. So it says, as a second-round pick, the assumption was that Cooper would move past Wilson and into the starting lineup at some point early in training camp. So the real question was whether Cooper would eventually knock off Isaiah McDuffie and join Quay Walker as the 2 linebackers in the nickel. Instead, Wilson's excellent play on the practice field, coupled with the hip injury that has kept Cooper out the past couple of weeks, has made Wilson a surefire week 1 starter in the base defense. So obviously getting those extra reps has shown what Wilson can do. I have no problem with this, Jacob. I don't have when they drafted Cooper, you guys know he wasn't my best linebacker. I'll go to my board here real quick. I actually had Edgerrin Cooper as the 4th best linebacker, okay? Now, keep in mind, Greg Cosell said it's going to take a year before he's ready, but he has him as his best linebacker. And people hear that and they go, what are you talking about? Like he's saying he may not be the best linebacker of this class in year 1 because he's so raw in talent or in experience. But by year 2, he's probably going to pass everyone else up. It's like a Quay Walker 2.0. I had Junior Colson, Peyton Wilson, and Cedric Gray ahead of Edgerrin Cooper. It doesn't mean I'm right. That's not what I'm saying here. But I don't really have a problem with Edgerrin Cooper. You want him to be healthy, and he flashed when he was healthy that first week of practice. But I'm totally okay with Eric Wilson, Isaiah McDuffie going out there and carrying the torch until he gets healthy, because it kind of lines up with what Greg Cosell was saying, although injury wasn't in the game plan, nor was, Greg Cosell talking about that. But you know what I'm saying, Jacob? It just kind of no reason to hit the panic button. Let him get healthy. And who knows, maybe we get a quarter of the way through the season and he flashes in practice and bang, he takes that spot from one of those guys, right?
Yeah, I mean, right now it doesn't make any sense to me to force him to the forefront when, 1, he's not healthy, 2, he's probably still getting caught up with the playbook and the speed of the game and all that kind of stuff. I've been really impressed with McDuffie basically since day 1. I've been super impressed with Eric Wilson since he joined the team. So yeah, I think both those guys have totally been deserving to get the shot. And if they, for some reason, like you said, are not up to snuff, then it's nice to know that we've got a couple of guys being Hopper and Cooper. I can never get that right. Hopper and Cooper in the mix there, that if, something happens injury-wise, if for whatever reason the guys aren't playing up to snuff, we can have a really young and talented group of meat missiles to back them up.
And again, this isn't a knock on Cooper. I think Cooper is made of all the right stuff. Like it says here, it says, is Cooper destined to be a backup all season, or will he eventually take Wilson's job? Quote, this is Cooper talking. Sometimes it gets to me, Cooper said this week of his extended absence. Quote, but things happen, so I just have to do what I can do. Just keep pushing, try to get better, and get on the field as fast as possible. So this is something that's eating at him. It's not like he's just sitting back going, yeah, this is a redshirt year. We'll see how everything unfolds. So definitely keep our eye on that linebacking room as Cooper tries to get healthy moving forward here. So, all right, man. And these Men Dove ads are killing me, Jacob. Ain't nothing better than staring at a hairy armpit. You know what I'm saying? Like, golly, so let's just ease off of there. The Nissan one I can handle. You know what I mean? Pretty good truck. I got one in the driveway, actually. But anyway, sponsor the show. Cornerback was Eric Stokes versus Carrington Valentine to actually start. Remember us talking about that in the offseason, Jacob? We were like, hey, Carrington might push, or even Corey Ballantyne. I was big on Corey. Hey, listen, if Corey Ballantyne plays better than Stokes, put him out there. Stokes had a pretty good camp, seems like. It goes on to say, now the story of the battle is Kalen King versus Robert Rochelle versus Corey Ballantyne for roster spots. So Bill Huber seems to think one of these three have a decent chance of getting cut. Kalen King, Robert Rochelle, Corey Ballantyne. You guys know Corey's probably my favorite of those three, with the exception of Kalen King. I think he has a lot of upside, especially as a 7th-round pick. It's just wild. Robert Rochelle, though, that last game, Jacob, he absolutely balled out, dude. It says the hamstring injury that sidelined Valentine for 2 weeks put him early into the competition to be the starter opposite Jair Alexander. That position belongs to Stokes. Now the battle will be for the final roster spot or spots. Of those three, if you had to cut one, Jacob, don't forget Robert Rochelle's performance last week. What would you cut there, man?
Yeah, it is tough. It's a lot tougher than I would have ever thought at the beginning of camp. Robert Rochelle has played really well, and I think that he plays really well in special teams too. Probably a lot more than the other two of them, to be honest. But just over the body of work, I think that there's more of a possible max ceiling with Kalen King. I think Ballantyne has a higher floor. So still would have to probably pick Mr. RR to get out of there.
Yeah, that's where I'm at too, man. Corey Ballantyne has done so much with actual regular season game time. That's who I would pick of the group. Kalen King, like you said, this is the story. Kalen King, higher ceiling than everyone. Robert Rochelle, more recent contributor on special teams to Corey Ballantyne, highest floor. So it's like, to me, it's unless Robert Rochelle balls out these last two games, I still feel comfortable saying let's just try to stash Robert Rochelle in the practice squad and move forward. I think there's a decent chance Kalen King and Corey Ballantyne would get signed quick if he decided.
I was just going to say, yeah, the other thing, too, we have to remember is I'm pretty sure, isn't Ballantyne like 28, possibly going to be 29? So,
yep, 28, yep.
That factors in a little bit.
It does, yeah. It's kind of like a 1-year rental, and I think it's a pretty good 1-year rental. But you're right, man. It's going to be definitely something you take into consideration. CJN in the chat says, huge focus on those three guys tonight. Robert Rochelle had a great game, but will he do it consistently? Amen, man. We're going to find out this evening. It'll be a lot of fun, man. Under the lights. I don't know if the lights will be on. I guess they will. What mountain time? What would that be, Jacob? It's 7 o'clock your time, so it'll be 5 o'clock their time. So it'll still be daylight out there, won't it? So interesting how the time zones work. It says the Packers wouldn't have made the playoffs last year if not for Ballantyne, who went from the practice squad to playing the second most perimeter cornerback snaps. He could play corner or slot and is an asset on special teams. So you can see Bill Huber's talking about Ballantyne being just as much an asset on special teams as Rochelle. Rochelle has had a good training camp as one of the team's better players on special teams. He had a tremendous rep on punt coverage at Cleveland. King, a 7th-round pick, has been one of the surprises of the summer. After a dismal scouting combine, it was rather startling to see him go step for step with Bo Melton to break up a pass this week. His instincts are strong, and he has shown potential in the slot. So if that man can run stride for stride with Bo Melton, Jacob, there is a thing called game speed, man. I'm excited about Kalen King. I think we found us one there, man. I think he's going to kind of be that. Not quite. I'm not saying he's going to be as good, but it's going to kind of feel like in a year or two we're going to look up and go like, that might have been the Zach Tom of the draft that year. You know what I'm saying? Just a huge contributor.
Yeah, I mean, I would even say he could be the Rasheed Walker. Would be a little more apt comparison because it's a left tackle that we got in the 7th round. So really important position that you probably just, I don't want to say that it was a throwaway pick by any means, but I'm sure that Goody didn't draw up the, hey, every 7th rounder that I draft for the next 3 years, I'm going to get starters at each, shot I make there. That being said, I'm super pumped on this group. Oh, and by the way, here Prince said that Rochelle is 26 years old. So that, they're definitely a lot older. So if you told me I had to pick one of them to start a franchise with, I think I'd go Kalen King just because you have so much more, you know what I mean?
No doubt about it, man. Yeah, I'm completely on board with that, man. He would be my pick if you had to. All right, you got to pick one of these three. You're starting a franchise today. Absolutely, man. Completely agree. All right, safety, man. This is an exciting room here. You're talking about completely remodeling the safety room. It was the third safety was the camp battle. Now Evan Williams' role. And it says the starting 5 in the secondary seems solidified with Jair Alexander and Eric Stokes at corner, Keyshawn Nixon in the slot, and Xavier McKinney and Javon Bullard at safety. What about Williams? At this point, he might have a limited role on defense or no role at all, even though the 4th-round pick has made more splash plays than anyone in the secondary. That's what the coaches like to call a good problem. Quote, it's just honestly just trying to keep a big center of focus and at the same time matching that with the kind of relentless attack top mentality, Williams said. That's something that defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley has preached is just ball out, break, kind of has to be almost a machine-like response. When the ball's out, step on the gas pedal and go full throttle. So it's obvious that's the emphasis they've been putting on the safety room. How do you feel about the way Bill Huber said that here, man? Because you guys have heard me. I've been kind of talking like, how about Bullard in the slot in the nickel and putting Evan Williams on the field out there, and then when you're in base, take Williams off the field and put Bullard at the safety opposite X. Are you reading that the same way I'm reading it from Bill Huber? It's kind of like they may put Williams on the back burner. Or am I reading that wrong?
I think that's a fair analysis. I personally would love to see that. I keep shaking my head every time we talk about the DBs, and if you scroll up just a little bit, when they listed off our projected starters, I always forget that they just throw Keyshawn Nixon in the slot, and I hate that. I don't feel like that he's our best slot, and
right.
I don't know, man. That's going to be an interesting mid-season, I think, conversation that we're probably going to have. I hope I hope it doesn't have to happen, and that he balls out so clearly that we're all just sitting here like, man, that dude earned his money. He's making the returns. Everything's looking great. Like Bill just said, that's a great problem to have if we have 3, possibly 4 guys that could, play in 2 starting positions. I just, if I could pick, my dream scenario would be those. Bullard's rocking some slot snaps, Evan Williams and McKinney in the safety position there, and Keyshawn is happy and content being an all-pro kick returner on the sidelines, and he's not mad at all.
That ain't going to happen, but
no.
I understand what you're saying, man. Kalen King and Javon Bullard in the slot. I think that, I don't know, man, if Kalen King, I guess the question becomes, who is better at playing the slot, Kalen King or Javon Bullard? I think it's pretty damn cool that we have to ask that question from a 7th-round pick and a 2nd-round pick, seeing that Javon Bullard, all signs are indicating he's showing up. This dude's going to be a great, at least a very good NFL defensive back. And the fact that Kalen King might be ahead of him at nickel behind Keyshawn Nixon says a lot about Kalen King and that draft pick itself. So that's just pretty cool, man. Pretty darn cool. And you keep that depth out there, that rotational aspect. If somebody needs a breather, you're not using Evan Williams and Javon Bullard more consistently. Maybe you're moving Kalen King into the lineup a little bit more. But I'm with you. I just don't have a good feeling about how Keyshawn Nixon's like, I'm the slot, get over it. I'm the slot, get over it. And everybody's looking up going, but you might not be the best for it. So
here's a couple of good points. Ron says, like we were saying before, Nixon will have to need to perform, basically outperform the young guys that are behind him, which I agree with. And then Dennis below responds to me. He says, I'm telling you, Jacob, K9 would throw a fit if he gets jumped by Bullard. It could be Jair 2.0 level locker room issue. I could see that, but I would, the Packers organization, I feel like, is really good at putting out fires before they start, or at least kind of hiding the fact that there's maybe some drama going on. So if they get to a point where I feel like that they're, whether it be through preseason games or stuff they're seeing in practices, even if we're not seeing it, and they decide, okay, not only could Bullard start over Nixon, possibly King could, possibly Ballantyne could. So therefore, is Nixon worth the headache that we see him kind of becoming? And then maybe they look for some sort of trade option. I could see that being a thing. But who knows? I don't think that I do not think that he's the type of player, Nixon, that can take that that type of criticism. I think that he would become probably a locker room cancer.
Yeah, I hate to say that about a person, but when you keep posting on social media, it's like I want to be able to tell you, no, Jacob, I disagree, but I can't. It's like, just go win the damn job. Go be the better player. That's what I want. That's what everybody wants to see. We want to see Keyshawn Nixon, but you kill me, the attitude he brings, the spark he brings. He's kind of a fiery guy. When he picked off Patrick Mahomes last year, I was like, let's go. A couple times. Remember when wasn't it him? I believe it was Keyshawn Nixon. I could be wrong. I think it was Keyshawn Nixon that sacked Dak Prescott on that play too, wasn't it? Remember that play where he rolled to the right in the playoff game and just out of nowhere someone came fly? I could be mixed up. I think it was Keyshawn that just came out of nowhere and drilled Dak. Dak was like, where the hell did he come from? Like, he shows these spurts where it's like, okay, he's got the physical ability to do it, but it's like, just go out there and dominate these two guys, and you don't even have to talk about it. That's the part that kind of bothers me, is like when you're talking about, I'm the nickel, I'm the slot. It's like that guy. Everybody knows. We got those friends. You got that crew you used to run with when you were younger. Maybe some of you are still doing it. There's always one knucklehead in the group that just wants to. You're like, yep, who's he going to start a fight with tonight? You know what I'm talking about, Jay. I think you might have been that one in your group.
Yeah.
That's for another day. So, but yeah, it's just, I don't know. It bothers me, man. Just like, go beat these dudes out. The rookies, you should be able to beat them out. You should be able to, right? So
remember, wasn't there talk for a hot minute that Nixon was going to be taking some swing passes or like bubble screens, and that he was actually taking practice snaps and stuff like that. I mean,
well, he made a comment last year, and I think LaFleur said, "Hey, let's dominate the slot position first." Now they put him in, if I remember correctly, technically yards per carry. Keyshawn Nixon was the leader of the Packers last year, so
he had that one end around, didn't he?
Right. Yeah. So when the thing that Keyshawn Nixon is really, really good at, and it kind of showed on that Dak Prescott play, if I'm remembering correctly, that was him. In tight spaces, he's very good at navigating traffic. Obviously, it's what makes him a great kick returner, but also he's fearless in those tight quarters with bodies around. And that end around, you've seen it too. It's like, okay, I don't care. Yeah, that guy, let him blow right past me. Got it. All right, let's get upfield. He's very smooth. I hate the dog on him, but A.J. Dillon does not keep his feet moving. Keyshawn Nixon, when he's in traffic, keeps his feet moving. That's what we're talking about. Emmanuel Wilson keeps his feet moving. Watch it today. And maybe, hopefully, A.J. Dillon will straighten that up too. But when you watch some of these guys like Emmanuel Wilson and even Keyshawn Nixon, like I said, when he's in tight quarters on a return, which I don't even know if he'll be returning today, the key is keep your feet moving to navigate through the traffic. You can't stop. You can't just stop and start again at the running back position. You can't do it. So, but yeah, I think there's a little bit to that, although I try not to buy too much into some of that hype around, hey, let's put this defensive player on offense. I like Coach Matt LaFleur's response. Hey, listen, let's learn how to play slot before we worry about carrying the ball, all right, as Tupac LaFleur would say. So let's see if there's anything else here. Let's finish reading this little snippet here from Bill Huber. It says, what about Williams? At this point, he might have a limited role on defense. Did we read that already? Yeah, we did. Didn't we? Yeah, okay, cool. We already hit that. Specialists. Let's move on to specialists. All right. Was Anders Carlson versus Greg Joseph. Now it's Anders Carlson versus Greg Joseph versus the waiver wire. We haven't talked about that, man. It says, while Carlson and Joseph made both attempts at the joint practice in Denver on Friday, neither has taken command. In fact, both had dismal days on Wednesday. While the Packers would like Carlson, a 6th-round pick last year, to win the job, it's fair to wonder if the week 1 kicker is even on the roster. If a reliable veteran becomes available after final cuts, GM Brian Gutekunst might be interested. Quote, I've always been pretty good about staying in my own lane, focused on myself and what I can do to get better, Carlson said recently. It's great to have other people in the room, too. You both can benefit from it. It's something you've got to embrace, talking about the competition. Jacob, we haven't talked about that. I think it's so rare that a kicker becomes available because a team's got 2 really good kickers. But I guess there is a chance that we could find a kicker off the waiver wire if we're not happy with either of these guys at the end of camp, right?
Yeah, I mean, especially because when we started the training camp, at first the guys were both looking really, really well. I think that for the longest time they had only missed like 2 kicks, 3 kicks, and then as of late, suddenly we did that exercise where we looked at the different kicking percentages, and even when the guys had just still were pretty consistent and hadn't really made a lot of misses, we were still like the 12th ranked as far as percentage wise goes. And now I think the guys have gotten a little bit worse. So we're probably around the 85, 84 or something like that percentage. I think it could be even a little bit worse if that's the case. And we're in the bottom half of the league. So it definitely is going to be a little worrisome. I think that if anybody tells you that they're happy with the special teams after we swapped the long snapper again, and now we're actually playing a little bit of kicker carousel, it's a little nerve-wracking, I guess, but especially if everything else is going really smooth and we have another really important loss strictly from the hands of our special teams players, that's going to be a tough one to swallow.
Yeah, I can see that. All right, something else real quick before we get ready to wrap up. If you guys would, hit that like button for us. Just take a quick second to do that. We greatly appreciate it. It helps boost the algorithm, helps other Packer fans find this channel and find our content. We really appreciate everybody supporting us through the offseason, now through preseason. The channel's blowing up. The podcast is blowing up. It's just a testament to Packer fans and how loyal and awesome you guys and gals are, especially to just loving football, even during the downtime. Bill Huber put this tweet out, said, one of the young Packers competing for a spot on the team is receiver Jalen Wayne. He's got a heck of a story and a great mentor. His cousin is Reggie Wayne, a 6-time Pro Bowler, and current Colts receivers coach. So go check out that article at si.com from Bill Huber. Thought that was pretty cool. Now, listen, when he says competing for a spot on the team, I don't think he's talking about the active roster. I think he's talking about that 69-man roster that Coach LaFleur has been talking about. But I'll tell you what, man, this guy comes from good stock here with his cousin being Reggie Wayne. Do you remember Reggie Wayne back in the day, Jake?
Oh, yeah, dude. Reggie Wayne had arguably one of the best stretches. Obviously, him and Peyton were that was about as automatic as any matchup that you could have over the last 30 years. It was impressive.
Yeah, definitely. And what's cool, too, is like when Marvin Harrison left, I don't want to say they didn't miss a Hall of Famer, but they didn't miss him as much as you would think because Reggie Wayne was just right there taking over the reins, right?
Remember Dallas Clark, too?
Yeah, Dallas Clark. And then they had there was another guy, too, a slot, your typical short white boy playing the slot. Who was it that played the slot for them? Stokely.
That's right.
Is that right? Brandon Stokely, maybe?
I thought it was, yeah.
I can't remember. Anyway, it seems like all those teams always had, like Belichick always had, whether it was
Wes Welker.
Yeah, Wes Welker or Edelman.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, man, you're white. You're too slow to play on the outside. Let's pop you into the slot.
Austin Collie. Is that who you were thinking of?
Austin Colley's another one. You're right, man.
Yeah.
Forgot about him. Yeah. I want to say there was a Stokes guy too. Let me see. Let's go Colts Stokes on the old Google machine here and see if there was one. I thought there was one. No, maybe not. I think you were right. That was the one I was thinking of. So anyway, anything else you want to hit on, Jacobs? We get ready to wrap up here, big dog.
Yeah, actually, there was a couple. So Dennis had a comment here. He said, how's it possible that there aren't 32 good/great quarterbacks and 32 good to great kickers in the world? I often think about certain things like that. Mine specifically, even when I was a kid, and to this day, I always think about how has there not been like the Tom Brady of punters? How come nobody one punter, a guy that can boot it 80 yards, that he can put it on a dime, no matter where directionally, I can just, I can put it in between the 5 every time because I'm just so good. At this point, you feel like there should be somebody that is that good at kicking. I think it was the black guy, number 7 from the Raiders. I think it was Marcus King.
Oh yeah, he was
awesome. I mean, he had a boot and a leg, and I don't know what happened to him. He just, went away. But I remember that was like the one time that I remember watching a punter and being like, this dude is different compared to other punters.
He brought so much swag too, man. Like the way it was awesome. It was awesome.
Yeah. And then there was another comment by, I want to say it was Ron. Yeah, Ron Sanville here. He goes 1,504 players waived. So the likelihood is low for players to be picked up. I think we need to remember that because we look at this through the lens of a Packer fan that's been watching every single stat and update and you know what I mean, up to the wire updates and stuff. So we think of these guys probably in a different light compared to most of the other executives and all that kind of stuff. I think maybe we put a lot more stock into them compared as to what their actual market value is around the NFL. So that's a good thing to think about, but I still worry.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. And as far as the cut down date here, this is what we're looking at now, gang. Oops. Appreciate it. Thanks for trying, man. So obviously the third preseason weekend will be August 22nd through the 25th. So the final cut day will be August 27th. So we are now 9 days away from final cut down day. You guys know during COVID, they changed the rules to where they used to have it where you could kind of cascade down. You would trim the roster down to a certain amount. You go from like 90 to whatever it was, 70. And then you work your way down to 60 or whatever, then to the final 53. Now they have everything, all the cuts happen all at once. I think that plays into a little bit of the your guys are a little safer making it to the practice squad too, because there's so many people, like the listener was just saying, there's so many guys that get cut at the same time that it's like a little overwhelming for teams. But nonetheless, like Coach LaFleur said, you're building a 69. I think he said a 69-man roster is what he was talking about. So, what is that, 16 on the practice squad then, Jacob? So you got 53 on the active. I guess that would mean, if that number is correct, 16 on the practice squad. And I think you've only got a limited amount that have to be 2 years or less in the league. And then there's like Something else that changed with COVID, they allowed extra practice squad guys that don't have to be under that age. I'm not sure all the rules, but nonetheless, though, that final cut day is going to be August 27th. It's right around the corner. Really excited about that. So anything else, Dave?
Yeah, I just thought this was a pretty bold take. Well, actually, 3 bold takes by Nice Guy Eric, 21. He says, Wilson, tight end, beats Ben Sims and Tyler Davis for the 3rd tight end spot.
Ooh.
Emmanuel Wilson, running back, makes it in the 53 over A.J. Dillon, and he says that Greg Joseph will win the starting kicking job over Anders Carlson. Those are 3 bold takes, sir, but I could see an avenue as to all 3 could come true.
Yeah, if Joe Wilson does this week what he did last week, there's so many players to watch tonight, man. It's absolutely awesome. If Joe Wilson does what he did last week, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that he could beat Ben Sims and Tyler Davis. Now, I don't know how well Joe Wilson is at special teams. That's probably going to be a deciding factor.
I would say this is my least likely scenario, but I could see it happen, especially if there's an injury to either one of them.
Yeah, and again, think about the 69-man roster. You'll definitely get Joe Wilson on the practice squad. I feel comfortable saying that. Probably get all 3 of them on there if you needed to be honest with you. So that's where you look up every year for final cuts. There's a position they manipulate, and you go, whoa, they only kept 2 there or whatever. They might just kick 2 and go, okay, we know all 3 of these guys aren't going to get signed. Let's put them on the practice squad to keep some of these extra players. Maybe they keep an extra receiver, right? But I could see it happening. Nice guy there. And then also Wilson, running back, makes it on the 53 over A.J. Dillon. I don't know if they'll cut A.J., to be honest with you. But if you're asking me, I would personally like Emmanuel Wilson over A.J. The only thing that makes me hesitant is the passing game. A.J. was really good in the passing game last year. Like I think he had a lower drop percentage than Aaron Jones did last year, if I remember correctly, which is just wild to think about. And then Greg Joseph winning the kicking job, I could see it. I'd be totally fine with it. And the reason being is you can stash Anders Carlson on the practice squad, him reset to a futures contract for 2 years. You're only losing one of the remaining 3 years of his contract will be all that you'd be losing. And if he continues to work with Rich Bisaccia and get better in practice, and then next year you move on from Greg Joseph, now Anders Carlson's ready. I watched Daniel Carlson last night in the that's Anders' brother, kicks for the Raiders. They were talking about, he was drafted by the Minnesota Vikings, was horrible. They cut him, and then the Raiders picked him up, and now he's one of the best kickers in the league. So it's like you've got to be aware of that stuff, and maybe that's the good way to balance that situation is put him on the practice squad. You know what I'm saying, Jacob? Like, okay, if he does turn into that player, you still got rights to it type thing. So, but we'll see. All right. We're out of here, guys. Is there anything else you want to hit on? I know you got a few of these marked, Jacob. We're at the 52-minute mark. We got a few minutes if you want to hit them, or we can go ahead and wrap up.
I mean, I'm cool, man. Let's see. What do we got?
And let's do this Dennis Shook one. This looks cool. Dennis Shook says, Clayton, can you explain what kind of, quote, exotic looks / blitzes that people are saying Hafley is known for, or define exotics, the pros and the cons? Man, it's a deep question, Dennis. I've been pretty vocal. I didn't see that with Hafley. I don't see that with Robert Saleh. I don't see that with D'Amico Ryans. I don't see exotic blitzes. These guys, their mentality, their philosophy, and again, it's one thing to just say something is true. It's another thing to watch the tape and go, no, here's what they're actually doing. The goal is to get pressure with a 4-man rush. If your 4-man rush can't hit home, that's where you start dialing up the blitzes. But the reality is they want 7 in coverage with a 4-man blitz, a 4-man rush, I should say, not technically a blitz. Now, when you talk of exotic looks, one of the things that Robert Saleh likes to do is an overload. He'll put on one side of the defensive line, and I think we've seen this in the first preseason game a snap or two. He likes to put on one side of the offensive line or on the defensive side of the ball, but against the offensive line, a wide 9 tech, like a 5 tech, and a 4 tech, and then a wide 9 on the other side of the formation. I would say that's somewhat exotic. And the goal is you want one offensive lineman to not have a job. As we say all the time, be more confused than a fart in a fan factory. Like the dude's just out there blocking no one because the front is so exotic. Now, you can't do that on potential running downs. And I know some people are going, Clayton, every down is a potential run down. It's true. I've been frustrated and watched defenses in the past. It'd be a 3rd and 8, and we come with just a 4-man rush with a little bit of an exotic front, they run a draw play, pick up the first down. There's nothing that'll make me throw an ink pen at the screen faster than that. I promise you. That's the worry there with that overload that Robert Saleh likes to do, and I think Jeff Hafley will do as well. When you said exotic, that's the first thing that came to mind for me. Now, they will run scrapes, a scrape being a linebacker from the stack backer position. The defensive end will crash in, and the linebacker will loop around or scrape off of his hip. So you're taking the tackle and the guard in with the edge and then bringing the backer off a scrape blitz. There is some of that goes on, right? I think those are the two things that kind of catch my attention the most. People will make it sound like Joe Barry never ran stunts. He never ran TTs or ETs or TE stunts up front. That's just simply a lie. You can turn on the tape from last year, and we ran it constantly. That's the other thing about the whole two gap that we always played two gap. You cannot run a stunt and play two gap. That's not how it works. So I don't want to be the a-hole that tries to point out when people don't know what they're talking about, but it does bother me when they're tearing someone else down and they don't know what they're talking about. It's like, man, that takes a lot of nerve. But to answer your question, Dennis, that's what I think. I think you'll see stunning. I think you'll see that pre-snap overload on one side of the line of scrimmage, and I think you'll see some scrape blitzing. And again, you're going to see a little bit of Quay blitzing too, but they've got him wearing the green dot. They've got him playing Mike. When you're in nickel, typically the Mike is covering the seam. And you see every time we've ever played Tampa 2 since Quay's been here, he's been the guy down the seam, that deep third middle. So I don't know. That's just kind of – hopefully that answered your question. I don't want to say I hate. I shy away from talking X's and O's because you get going down rabbit holes. And I also don't want to come across like Clayton thinks he knows everything. Please don't ever. I've got so much to learn, I hate when the focus is on what I may or may not know about football, but I do appreciate the question, man. The big thing is just go watch the tape. Go watch the box cam and all that. Like Jacob the other day, see, we're going to go over now because you did this. I'm blaming you. I grabbed some screen grabs from the fronts, and let me pop them up here real quick for you. I put them in our DM here, okay? So here's some of the fronts that we showed whenever it was last Saturday, whenever the game was, okay? So like right here, you've got kind of see the nose is pretty much just playing shade on the center, and then you've got what appears to be a 2-eye look, or I'm sorry, probably more of a 2-tech. And you see your wide nines, your defensive ends out there in a 7 or a 9, really a wide 9, right? But everybody in a 3-point stance. That was one look we showed. All right, let's go on to the next one here, if I can. Bang. All right, right here you see now you've got what appears to be a 3-tech on the outside shoulder of the guard, and then the other is in a 1-tech. You see what I'm saying on the interior? And notice how the defensive ends aren't quite out as far wide. Like Rashawn Gary is in a wide 9. I would consider that a wide 9. But Preston Smith is in more of a 5-tech, outside shoulder of the tackle. Okay, so there's another look. And again, these are going to be vanilla because it's preseason. Here you see you've got a 1-tech nose. I think that might be Slayton or Jonathan Ford. And then, this is the opening drive, so that's definitely Slayton. And then you got Kenny Clark playing what appears to be a 3-tech. That's that true 3-tech we're talking about. And they'll put Kenny Clark in the 3-tech when you're sidecar right or left because on a running play, unless it's a misdirection, which there's a very low percentage of runs are misdirections, that running play, can you see my cursor right now, Jacob?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That running play, most of the time, 90% of the time, has to go to this side of the field. Look where he's running straight at if it's inside zone, Kenny Clark. So that's why you want a true 3-tech over there, okay? That's another look there. Let's see, third look. Actually, that's the one we just hit. All right, let's go to this one. Oh, no. You know what? Notice the backers here too. So notice how you got the slot up here in the box. This is essentially a 4-3 look, and it's a 4-3 under shaded to the weak side. This is your strong side of your formation. Notice the defensive tackles are shaded to – actually, it's an over. Okay, so it's a 4-3 over, but it's almost like a 4-4 look with this DB in here. You've got 8 guys in the box. You've got your defensive front shaded to the strong side, and your linebackers are, mock linebackers bent over. It's almost like this guy's on the line of scrimmage, so you're bringing a real strong one-gap approach there. So that's a different look. Here you've got kind of that 4-4 look again because this slot is so close to the slot receiver. But you see once again TJ Slayton. See what I'm saying about playing nose here, Jacob? He's kind of in that shade look, and then you got Kenny out here playing somewhat of a 3-eye tech there as well. So that's just some looks at some of the fronts we showed. I was trying to see if we had an overload. That's somewhat of an overload there. This is a good look. So notice the nose is in a 1 tech. He's in between the guard and the center. Notice on this side how far out they are. You've got your other defensive tackle in a 5 tech, and you got a wide 9, and then you've got Gary out here on the outside shoulder of the tight end. That's kind of a 7 tech. That's a little bit of the mini overload that Robert Saleh likes to run. The only difference is Robert Saleh would have, and this is a 1st and 10 plays, probably why he didn't have it here. Gary will be out here in a wide 9, but a 1st and 10, you gotta play the run there. So, like I said, that's just a couple of looks at some of the fronts. Hopefully that makes sense. Sometimes it's best to see a visualization, but yeah. Anyway, we got to get out of here. We're at the hour mark. That's how you go over. So
here we go. Yeah, the last thing would be, I'm sure when we hop off here, just so you guys know, we're going to be doing 2 more shows tonight, a pregame show. So I would say Clayton, roughly around 6 o'clock Central Time.
Yep.
And then we'll do whenever the postgame show, whenever the game ends up. I'm sure Clayton will make a link pretty quick here. So if you could get that done for the next pregame show, because if we could ask you guys right after this show ends and we get that link up, if you could share the upcoming stream, so the one for the pregame show, and maybe just throw it on your Facebook or your Twitter, and that's going to help because on game days specifically, we've noticed we have a lot of people searching for content. If you guys want to, like I said, post it on your story, and just, I'm sure you have fellow Packer fans and family members and all that kind of stuff. So that would help us a lot, get a bigger audience, especially when we have a few hours like today to kind of lead into a pregame show. It'll help quite a bit. So we had great numbers last week, and it's been crazy growth. So
yeah, crushed. I think we were over like 4,300 views on the video where we were just live during the camp practice. That was a lot of fun. Had a lot of Denver fans in there too, which is really cool. As long as people aren't rude, I think it's awesome to kind of get their perspective on stuff. You had a couple of knuckleheads. It's like, man, if y'all really sink this low that you're running victory laps over at practice, anyway. But yeah, like Jacob said, we'll be going live roughly 6 p.m. Central Time for a pregame show, and I'll have the link up. You guys can go grab it, and then we'll do a show right after the game. We may go a little early, Jacob, during the 4th quarter. That way we're not up too late because it is preseason. But we'll be doing that all year long, guys. And again, shout out to all of our Patreon crew. If you guys are interested in joining that awesome community, just go to patreon.com/Packer Fan Total Access. Got a lot of good conversations going on in there. We do giveaways out there and everything. You can also scan that QR code in the upper right. That'll send you to the same thing. But we appreciate everybody in there hanging out. So that being said, we're out. We'll see you guys here in a little bit. For those of you listening on the pod, thank you for making us a part of your day. Enjoy this Sunday afternoon. We got Packer football this evening. Let's go out and be the change we want to see in the world. Go Pack, go.